How's it going, Cabbage Patch? Morimashi here, back at it again with another video. Today's video is going to be kind of different. By the way, sorry for being gone for so long. I promise to try and post every Wednesday, or at least every other Wednesday. So, that's something you should be looking forward to. And I have other stuff to mention at the end of the video. But just a quick heads up as well. There's gonna be some cuts and stuff in between videos because there's some things that I didn't really want to keep in there. So, and also there were some technical problems. So I hope you guys still enjoy the video regardless. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Moreno, or Steven Moreno. He is one of the developers behind the game Hollow Revenant. You guys should check that out in my link down in the description below. It's a really good game if you have a VR headset. He's also my mentor who's been giving me advice since the beginning, since like junior year of Business Academy. I'm not sure about sophomore year, but I know for a fact that I got contact through him in Business Academy in my junior year. So how are you doing, Mr. Moreno? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Matthew.
All right. So today we're just gonna be doing some interview questions because I may have some people on my channel who are interested in game development or the idea of how does a game work, and just to be able for them to get to know you a little more, so that way if they would decide to play your game, they get to see be like, oh, this is what the developers like. That's so cool. So the first question I have is, what was the idea behind Hollow Revenant? Like, what kind of triggered the idea to say, all right, let's make a survival VR game?
Great question. Me and two friends of mine from school, we decided that we took a look at the Oculus platform and found that it was still a growing platform and that there wasn't much competition. And we looked at some of the 20 and under priced games, and we felt that we could offer a competitive title to some of these games, at least in the wave-based. We were looking to do a wave-based game to start our foray into VR.
Oh, okay.
And another thing was there was not as much emphasis on exotic weaponry. We've seen a lot of axe, sword, shield, a bow and arrow, crossbow, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Gun, perhaps, and we thought we wanted to see maybe some more exotic weaponry. So that was something else with Hollow Remnant that we wanted to bring more exotic weapons into the VR space, and we achieved that.
Oh, okay. I see. So could you go over some of the exotic weapons that are included in your game so people can have an idea to what lies ahead in playing Hollow Revenant?
Oh, sure. So there's several different types of weapons. We have ranged and melee. Both are necessary for combat.
Uh,
Melee weapons have special abilities to them. For example, one of them could be used to summon spectral blade, an army of blades, around you. Another one turn you invisible. Another allow you to throw it, and then it's instantly zapped back into your hand.
Oh, so like Mjolnir. The first one you
Yes.
talked about, the spectral blades, the one that summoned the army of blades. It kind of reminds me of. Have you seen the anime Fate Zero? Because I remember you bringing up that you've seen at some anime here and there.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so you've seen Fate Zero, so you know the character Gilgamesh, right? The hero. He
Yes.
has a
Yeah.
power like when you brought that up. He has a power a lot similar to the Spectral Grim power up. So I think that's really cool. What would you say? What would you say is your favorite weapon that you've designed in the game so far?
My favorite weapon
Yeah.
that I've designed, I would
Or like you
say,
got your team design, you and your friends designed. What's your favorite weapon?
I think I do enjoy the crossbows. The crossbows kind of work the same, although there is one that I designed that is, it's more of an X-shaped crossbow, so it is have its own unique design, or more, it has its own look compared to the other crossbows in the game. But it also does shoot slightly faster, so I guess that's why I do like that one.
Okay, all right. So speaking, since we're talking about game development, what are some of the things that got you into game development? Were there like any key inspirations, any games in particular that kind of just made you think, I really want to do something like this in the future?
Yes, I knew as soon as I was around maybe 12 in middle school that I wanted to make games someday.
All
Yeah, a
right.
couple years later, I dabbled with Game Maker, although I didn't really I wasn't passionate about it. And then fast forward to right after high school, took an orientation for a local game dev program. It looked great, and I thought, why not try it? Took a little bit of everything: design, programming, art. Everything felt right, and then I knew that I could bring to life what my dream was to give other people experiences that maybe they could have only had playing the game.
Mm.
That's how I felt sometimes playing the game, and I thought, wow, I felt grateful to have been shared this experience, by not just one person, a whole team of people. A lot of games are some big undertakings, a lot of time, effort, and people's hands. But I sometimes, like, what you get out of it is just indescribable, beyond words.
Yeah. So you were basically
And that's
trying
how I feel
to.
about games. Yeah.
So you were just basically trying to replicate that same feeling that you can't really explain. That don't like get that feeling that you normally don't get from playing any other game or like doing any other
And
thing.
I think that's a perfect way to describe it, Matthew. That to make a game that makes you feel a way that you don't already have a reference for feeling, right? Like
Yeah.
that means it must be new, right? Unfamiliar to you.
Yeah. Essentially. So, since we're still on the topic of games, what are some of the games that you've played at a younger age, and what are some of the games you play now, as you are currently? Are there any big differences in the type of games you played then and now?
Yes, well, I've always kind of played action and maybe adventure games, but now I've leaned more towards RPGs and maybe strategy games,
What's your
whether they
favorite?
be turn-based, real-time.
So, what's your
Yes.
favorite action adventure game or RPG and strategy game?
My favorite action RPG would probably be Dark Souls.
Ooh, that's a really good game. Like I heard a lot of good things from like one of my closest friends who also helps me on the channel. He said because he has I'm pretty sure he has Dark Souls 2 and 3, and he would always tell me that I had to try it. But since I couldn't, since I don't really have a lot of time. The only game I was able to play similar to it was Bloodborne, and that game, wow, I thought people were kind of over exaggerating about the game being really hard, and like the game will like beat you to the ground. They weren't kidding because like I'm still I'm still stuck at the first part, but like at the same time it's fun because like even though the game's really hard, the moment when you like do something cool like in Bloodborne, since you don't really have a parrying, you have to use a gun to parry and then you have to counter from there. Like doing stuff like that and getting better at the game and understanding how the game works, I think it's more rewarding because of how difficult the game is. So like I look forward to going into Dark Souls because of Bloodborne, and I could see why people would say it's really hard. Uh,
Absolutely. I appreciate all the Souls games, and they're great. I think the director, he's a big time contributor to the games. Hidetaka Miyazaki,
yeah.
an inspiration for me whenever I play any of those titles. Just looking around the environment, moving around, I feel sudden inspiration for example, 3D modeling
Mm-hmm.
than I might not have had before I started playing. So playing games is also good for inspiration on making games.
Other than games, what are some of the things that kind of inspire you in the process of developing Hollow Revenant? Like in terms of music or books or artworks, anything in particular that like kind of triggers that inspiration or creative activity in your brain to just go off?
Yes, we all three of us are a big fan of we all like similar things. We like anime, games, movies, shows. But anime was also an influence in Hollow Remnant. And we even had the anime Bleach, there's a weapon with flower petals as its more
Ooh,
magic ability, and so we had a
I think
Byakuya
yeah.
Kuchiki inspired type of weapon. They were dual katanas. We call them Death's Blossoms.
Ooh, that's so cool. I really want to get a VR set just to play that game now, honestly. Just because of that, mainly because of that weapon and the spectral blades. It just sounds really interesting. Is there anything in terms of the world of music that kind of inspired you? For example, like in my case,
World in music?
yeah, because in my case, one artist in particular that kind of inspired me to get started from into like what I want to do is Logic and his album The Incredible True Story, because essentially what happened in that album was a story of like it was like it was 2115, and the human Earth was basically destroyed, and the human population there has gone to zero. So you have these other human beings like these astronauts on the spaceship Aquarius 3 trying to get to the planet Paradise, which is essentially like it was like a duplicate of Earth, but like it was like way better. It was like an improved version, better oxygen levels and stuff, and similar time zones. So like the album basically consisted of like the story of getting there, and like and different stuff on how he feels. So like that album in particular kind of was like that could be made into a game. That's the mindset that I had, and so like I started just sketching down ideas and just learning how to make. I decided that I want to make it a top-down, two-dimensional type game where it's like it's kind of similar to Hollow Revenant in the sense that like it's a survival game, but I kind of wanted to make it a little more open world. And I'm like, you could have a time limit on how long you have to stay on the planet to scan the basics like the atmosphere, the materials there, and then you could go and continue your journey. So that's kind of the ideas that I got from that album. There's still a bunch of references, but that album in particular just kind of triggered me to be like, hey, this could be a game.
I think that's very. I'm glad you shared that, Matthew. I think that's very interesting. Sometimes I think our own imaginations are better game engines than any technology, any software we could use.
I think that's
in a
very
similar
true.
fashion. Yeah, in a similar fashion, I prototype in my head game mechanics to feel what's fun, and I can already kind of imagine what it would feel like. So I don't have to spend as much time maybe building out as many prototypes that are just throwaway projects anyway. You kind of have an idea that okay, I know intuitively that the feeling I'm getting from this kind of mechanic isn't worth bringing it to a technical aspect just yet.
Okay, okay. So moving on from like the games for a minute, I wanted to talk about Business Academy because that's where I kind of just got to know you because I had to do an interview for a certain position, and like that's where I got to talk to you for a bit. I talked to you, and I remember the guy who was in the in one of the members of the mentorship who was in the army. I forgot his name, but like he was also really interested. He was also a really cool dude too. But what kind of motivated you to join the mentorship program at Business Academy?
I was a student as well of the program, and I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to give back to the community by being an example of a student who has gone through the program, changed for the better, new skills and all,
Mm-hmm.
and then return to share, my experiences and how I think that they can improve even more.
Ah, I see. I see. Okay, so let's say what would be some of the things you would say to anyone who wanted to get into game development or anyone who has a certain dream in terms of the creative field? Because not only because one thing that I know, not only are you a game developer on your Instagram, you tend to have like a lot of motivational videos on helping people to like feel good and like feel motivated. So what are some of the things you would say to up and coming game developers, up and coming okay, anyone who wants to go into the creative field, who wants to do music, art? Like what's some advice you would give to them?
Try new things, even if you don't think it pertains to game development or some other form of media. Pretty much all things could help in the creation of anything else. For games, for example, maybe going on a hike every once in a while could help you think, with natural level design, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cooking could help you think about crafting recipes, right, for food. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of there's a lot of, see, the real world is in a way also like a better game engine than maybe a digital world, right?
Yeah.
So we could use the real world also to our advantage to help us develop games and or movies, write books, anything creative.
I think one of the best pieces of advice you've given to like not just me. I think you told this. I think you mentioned this in one of the lectures you did in. I think it was junior year in my sixth period with Miss Martin's class. Was when we were talking about the idea of anxiety and depression and like how these thoughts are first one dimensional and then when you write them down it's two dimensional and when you say it out loud it's three dimensional. I kind of took it to a next level and just I have a bunch of sticky notes on my wall over here, and they just say a bunch of
Yes.
positive things. One of them was written by my mom because my mom found out like how I was feeling in terms of like my anxiety and how I was most of junior year. And she was just rules in case like I felt like I needed to talk to someone, which was just no punishment, no anger, no judgment. And then from there I just wrote down a bunch of stuff that just kind of just made the ideas that I have in my head of who I want to be and things to say whenever I feel like I'm down. It's something that like I started telling others and advising others to do because over the summer, one thing that I realized because I spent most of my summer on Discord. I met a lot of great people. As a matter of fact, I met my significant other on Discord and got to know her, and she's a lot like me. But the thing is, one thing I noticed is there's a lot of people who surprisingly like seem to be going through a rough patch, or like they seem to be either bullied or they have a lot of anxiety. So like I would always go back to that note of advice that you've told me about, where like you just write something down and you could just say it out loud, and eventually like it just sticks with you, and you start feeling that way. So like I think one of the best things I wrote down on here was I'm strong, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm not afraid of nothing, and don't let anyone put their hands on me. And it was from an artist that wrote that, and it kind of just stuck with me for a bit. So I was like, I'm gonna just write that down and put it on my closet wall real quick, so I can just keep that in mind. So I'm very thankful for that advice, and I try to like let others know. So you know, thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm always willing to share. And it's not just the things you say or write down, but the actions you take. Everything you do is powerful. You make powerful moves in subtle ways. Then when you get out of bed in the morning, if you could feel like you're glad to get out of bed, that's creates this kind of, it's almost like you're programming your surroundings with emotion,
Yeah,
because it's, you can catch the vibe. So your bed, if you're always stressing out in bed, when you lay down in the bed, you might just comfortably nestle into maybe more stress, right?
yeah,
Unless maybe you sleep on the other side, you change it up somehow, right? And
yeah.
same thing with everything in your life. No matter how small the action, every time you take a drink of water to comfortably and calmly maybe know that, before and after I take a sip of this water, everything's gonna be all right.
I think one thing that I started doing when it comes to like helping people out, because one of the big reasons why I decided that not only do I want to do game development and follow what I want to do in the future, I kind of just picked up this spirit from just wanting to help others as I grow myself. I think one big reason why is because of Uncle Iroh from Avatar, because of how loving and caring he is. But I think that's what's kind of just set me off on like trying to be that kind of person. But at the same time, one thing that like I noticed is that a lot of people when they're feeling anxious, especially with some of my close friends, like one thing they keep telling me is that please don't tell me that everything is gonna get better because it really doesn't feel like it isn't. And like instead of saying that and saying that's not true, one thing that I realize is at the end of the day, only you can determine that. Only you can make sure that if you want it to be better and you decide push in the right direction, you can make that decision to make your day better or make things get better for you. You may not feel like it may be getting better anytime soon right now, but if you just look at the positives and look at what you have, and as much as it may not be much, you can use that as like fuel for the fire. And then if you need to push in the right direction, you just talk to someone you're close to and let them know how you're feeling and see what they would say and see if they're willing to help. And then from there, your decisions and what you say and your actions kind of just push you to make sure that make things get better or if things get worse. It really depends on, like you said, the actions and the words you say. So instead of saying so instead of just straight up saying it will get better, I'm saying it will get better. It will get better only if you decide to make that choice and push forward and keep that, try to keep as positive, be as positive as you can. It may be hard for a bit because of everything that's happening, but if that's the case, that's why you have friends, that's why you have your boyfriend, that's why you have your girlfriend, that's why you have your parents sometimes. Granted that some people don't have good parents or good friends, whoever you have, who you trust and who will help you out in a positive light, that's why you have them, to make sure that they can push you. I think I think one big reason why like I kind of just got that mentality was because of another anime that I said that kind of pushed me to make a game too. One Piece, because the main character Luffy, the one thing like when he lost his brother, spoilers, that's a big spoiler, but when he loses his brother Ace in the War of the Best, he goes into a deep depression and still thinks he's weak, but then he remembers that he has his friends, and that's what pushes him to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. So I think looking at that kind of just molded another part of you that I was just like, I don't want to lose anyone I care about, and I want to make sure that no one else has to go through anything that I went through 2019 and early 2020. I think that's one thing that like not only with your advice in the show, but with the shows that I've watched and the books that I've read and the music I've listened to, it kind of just pushed me onto this route where it's like not only do I want to do games, but I also want to help people who are feeling down and bring them up. So I think that's another big reason why I wanted to get into game development, to make a game where like they can feel comfort, and they could again, like you said, have that feeling that they don't really get from doing anything else. I think that's one big reason why I kind of just got into game development.
No, I understand. People have all kinds of reasons. Some people get into game development and don't even play games. It's strictly for they have skills that are practical in the field. I have a friend who loves playing games, never aspired or dreamed to be a designer or a game designer like I did, but post high school he just kind of decided, yeah, I could see myself doing this like real quick, and then he specialized in programming. So there's all kinds of, I think, reasons for games, but I do like that you pair more than one thing. Like you have the like it's not just the games. Now something a little deeper into that is how you felt or the feelings you were trying to go about, because that's when designing an experience, it's you got to consider like a lot of things, and the feeling aspect is definitely important. And given how we're only have our own creativity, you can actually make a whole kind of different kind of game with just those kind of with just those few words that you've set up. I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Her. It's a unique
Her,
kind of game. Her. It was a computer game,
I think I've heard of
and
it,
it's
but
it's unique in that it's live action, recorded or
mhm.
filmed, I should say. It is a game. It's more of a mystery type of sleuth game where you're trying to figure out a whodunit mystery, but it's with live action footage filmed, so it feels kind of more realistic. But you have decision. I don't want to call it an interactive film, maybe an interactive narrative experience,
Okay.
but something like that. Like they were able to utilize the real world. There is no character models. There's no set, and like you mentioned with your environment, detail to environment, maybe you could be in pretty much any location in the whole world, right? And
Mhm.
there's some pretty incredible locations, and some of these you can go there for free. And how much time depends, but you could save yourself, time, that development, right?
Yeah.
But this starts merging the line between games and maybe narrative and movie experiences. But I think that's a very interesting line, and I always admired that game Her just because of how they strove to be a little more unique.
I think I might just check that. I might just check it out on the. I might just see if I can play it, and maybe just I might just consider like streaming it. So like not only do I get to experience it, but like I want to make sure that anyone else who's on the channel who watches it gets to see it as well. Because that seems like an interesting game to play, especially with the real world aspect. Because the only other game that had some real world aspects that I've played or have heard of was Simulacrum. And then for the most part, like whenever I hear the word real world narrative, the last time I've thought of something like that was this kind of mediocre game called Press X Not to Die. I haven't played it, but I've seen gameplay of it, and it doesn't seem as good. So whenever heard of real life narrative, I think of that. But then at the same time, I think it's Simulacrum. So I think I might just check out Her to get a better experience from a genre game or narrative like that.
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
But since we're back onto the topics of games, let's go into a little bit about more on game development. and the idea of the process of it. So, what are some of the what are some of the difficult things that came with like developing Hollow Revenant, and how long, or better yet, how difficult could it have been sometimes? Like, what was the process like?
It was difficult in that there's a lot of different skills in game development, and we only had a team of 3 people. So an early obstacle we faced was we needed some assets that we didn't exactly have skills for, such as character artists. I'm more of an environmental artist, so I do more environment props and pieces. And so does one of my colleagues, and our other colleague, he almost exclusively programs. So that's something we faced a problem early on, that okay, we're just going to have to leverage existing assets, add our tweaks to them, because we don't have the character artist skills ourselves just yet.
Wait, so for a character artist in the game, what would it take to be a character artist for a game? Do you just have to be able to develop proper, like, really good designs, or is there other aspects to it, such as do you have to be really good at, like, say for example, for a 3D game, Blender, you have to be really good at that, or do you just have to have good character design and then from there you could just learn how to use Blender?
I think you actually have a door to many possibilities. While there's technically a character, drawing a stick figure on a sheet of note paper is a character technically, so you're technically a character artist. I guess it's just a matter of, is what you're envisioning for the game, do you have the ability to bring that into existence?
Oh, okay.
I myself have a lot of art and things in mind, but I don't exactly have the medium yet to bring that down.
Ah, I see. All right.
And like I mentioned, something I think for the process though, combining more of your gifts and talents from other areas in life, no matter how some of them pair better with others. Like Matthew, you once mentioned you sketch, you
Yeah,
have sketching
I
abilities. So
I
I
think
think
I think ske like I remember I think sketching is one of the things that I tend to do a lot, and to the point where like I'm able to sketch something relatively fast now. But yeah, I enjoy doing sketches more than full art pieces sometimes, because like it's just the fact that like I have those kind of drafts and I could look back at them instead of having to think up this entire new idea. I think just sketches, just I enjoy doing a lot more sketching than just doing full on digital art sometimes, because it just feels it's kind of like a stress reliever sometimes. So yeah.
I feel you, and that could actually be a really useful tool to you for game development. The game development is stressful, and this is a perfect example of you using other areas of your life to help you in your other endeavors. So since game development is stressful, but you happen to have the tool of sketching to help you relieve stress, you could be your sketches could be, you could take a picture with your phone and immediately send them to yourself, open them up in Engine, and already be like working with the props and pieces, that designs that you just sketched real quick. And in less than a minute, you could probably already have it. If you were really streamlined and efficient and you got fast with it, have in under a minute, you'd have assets just added to your folder.
I might just
And I don't think sketching doesn't have to mean 2D all the time. I think you could pull off 3D with sketching too. But also we've only scratched the surface with games. We could do all different kinds of types of games. No, the world didn't expect Pokemon Go like it did. The world didn't expect Her, although it doesn't have the hugest audience. But there are a lot of games that do some really interesting things, and there's so much more we could play with. And I think
um
you combining your sketching skills, I think you could have a really interesting take on something.
oh, since we're on the topic of like types of games, are there any games you're looking forward to that are coming out either this year or next year? Cause in my case, I think
Cyberpunk,
Cyber.
yeah.
Oh yeah, one of my friend, a bunch of my, me and a friend of mine, Marco. He mentioned Cyberpunk to me, and like he said that I think it was either for Xbox, mostly for the new Xbox or PlayStation 5. That if you bought Cyberpunk before, you get a free copy for the new console or something. But I heard it was supposed to be,
Yes.
I heard it was supposed to be really good when it comes out. But personally, I think I'm looking forward to the new. I think the two games I'm looking forward to the most are the new Spider-Man game that's coming out because I really enjoyed the first one and what it has to bring, and this one is bringing in my favorite Spider-Man, Miles Morales. And there's the new God of War that's coming out next year, or no, yeah, next year, yeah. It's coming out next year, so I'm looking forward to that. Are you planning on getting the PlayStation 5 or the new Xbox?
I hadn't really considered it. I've just been focused on other things, but I'd love to play the new God of War one as well. I really enjoyed that. That was an incredible experience. I With the past God of War games, you kind of would have just thought, okay, same old, same old. I'm gonna just
Kill a lot
hack and
of
slash my way through levels. Yep, and
yeah,
some larger bosses. But this game just completely changed the script, and not just the script for God of War, but also for interactive. It was a true RPG. It was a true experience. That game was an example of those kinds of experiences you can only really have through a game, maybe than exactly real life.
yeah. I think one thing that I really enjoyed was the story. Like at the same time, the only thing I really wondered at the beginning was how did he get to the Nordic gods territory? That's the first thing that came to mind. But as I was playing through, I was like, it didn't really matter. I think I really enjoyed the newer God of War stories compared to the first three and the Ascent and God of War Ascension. Because granted, he was on a quest of revenge, and he's one of those characters that like he was known to be one of the characters that are quote unquote too angry to die, and he has this burning rage to kill all the Greek gods. But at the same time, it feels like in God of War, yeah, he still has that anger, but it's more controlled, and he's more calm, and he's a dad now. And it was just, I think I just enjoyed the story a lot more. I think one of my favorite scenes or my favorite gameplay moments of the new God of War, of that God of War was when you found out that Baldur was the son of Freya, and Baldur wanted to kill his own mom, and Kratos got close with Freya, and he had no choice but to fight Baldur, and in the end Freya ended up hating us because that's her son. I think that kind of just that moment, it was just like showed me how powerful like a family can be. That even to the point, even though like her own son was about to kill her, she was still fine, and she didn't want anything to happen to her son. And I was like, wow. But overall, the game was just really good. The fact that like Kratos is no longer just Kratos going on a murderous rampage. You have him and his boy, and they have a goal to reach somewhere. Pay respects to their mom, and then you find out about who Atreus actually is, which is I think that was the part where I got really hyped for the newer game, because at the end of the last God of War, they mentioned that he mentioned that his name was Loki, and now I wonder if how big of a role that's gonna play into the newer God of War. So like I'm really excited for the new God of War and what it has what the story has to tell. Honestly, I also really enjoy like the voice actor. The voice actors on there seem really fun, especially with like Kratos' voice actor in particular. Because I remember seeing a video where the voice actor for Kratos was telling dad jokes over some of the clips of the game, and I think I really enjoyed that. It just fit really well with how Kratos is now, and it was just something that I really enjoyed. So overall, I think I'm looking forward to those two games in particular. I think one
Us,
thing one thing I would love to see in games now currently, because it's becoming a bigger thing, is cross platform. Granted that like I don't think there should be cross platform on exclusives, like exclusives remain exclusives, but I would love to see more games that like incorporate that feeling of different consoles coming together, because I feel like there's a lot more opportunity from that perspective.
Something I wanted to touch upon that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned music and inspiration you got from such as Logic.
Yeah.
I think that's another something I thought that was really interesting, that we can pull from all kinds of different sources inspiration. And I think maybe not everyone might be inspired the same as me or you with music, but it could be with anything else happening in life, really. And I thought, that could be something you used for you, Matthew. Like you found that song to be enlightening, but maybe if you tried, now that you knew that you had that maybe skill or power, that you could just listen to the music that you would like to listen to anyway, or even new music, and then you, based on your interpretations, you come up with at least something maybe you'd want to sketch, right? Then you're sketching something you're interested in because you were just inspired through music, and then it suddenly ends up, now it funneled into a game, and now you're streamlining almost an like a factory, right? An imaginary factory.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah.
And you're enjoying every minute, right? Like you got to enjoy the music, and then you get to enjoy the sketch, and then hopefully enjoy putting the rest of the pieces together in engine, and then suddenly it's just like streamlined.
I think of like when it
Something
comes
else
to
I think
oh, okay. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I think the most important thing I think I learned from my time making games is that sometimes don't always do everything yourself. Whether it's getting someone else to work with you, getting someone else to contribute to the project, or even using something someone else has made. That I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If it's to help you with something else, something different you have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that teamwork makes the dream work. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to make all those games. I've made 3 games so far, and that wouldn't have been possible without, the help of my 2 colleagues and friends that I met at school. That was the most valuable part of getting my degrees, was meeting these 2 gentlemen that I would go on to make my dream of becoming a game developer come true. And it only took me less than 10 years. And then now after I finished that, I'm like, okay, now I get to make a new dream.
Wait, question. How long did it take for you to develop Hollow Revenant?
Hollow Revenant took about 2 years. We could have had it complete faster than 1 if we made a different decision. So a big launch timing was something we learned that might not have been so crucial. Technology, it's actually very crucial. With VR, there was now the introduction of some really powerful VR games such as Half-Life Alyx, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Boneworks. These had a lot of realistic physics, and influencers we'd speak with, they just kind of became more quickly better. They liked the taste of this realistic physics. And when it came time to show them our game and share our game with them, not everyone was so inclined to play what felt like the previous generation of VR, but it was actually the same generation still. It just kind of created this standard now. And we actually had everything that would have been sufficient for the time, but we did, I guess, take a little bit too much time working on some content for the game. And so it ended up taking 2 years because we added a whole huge amount of content to the game. We honestly could have made a different game with that much content. And thinking back, we should have done that. We would have thought it'd be better to try 2 different games, try that way instead of just one bigger game. It also would have helped us with the timing. So launch timing could also be pretty important. Maybe not so much for competition, but also for technology. Because now those 3 games kind of set a standard for VR games, and now there could be games similar to that have a more realistic physics focus now. It doesn't take too long. It's just a matter of knowing from the very beginning maybe that this is the kind of system you're going to put.
I see. Are there any tips you would give to like the idea of launch timing other than from VR? Are there any tips you would give to anyone who wants to who might be ahead of the curve and maybe thinking of launching but they don't know where and when and why or how?
I think playtesting is the most important thing. The more playtests you have, the better the game could be. And it's almost a soft launch in a way. You could have as many people as you want specifically play the game, get a whole bunch of feedback, and maybe even they generate buzz. Maybe you could tell them it's okay to share or mention the game, and now they're already generating some buzz. And it's almost like you've had a soft launch. Restaurants do the same thing. They don't have the grand opening. They have maybe the soft launch to test the restaurant, see how it's doing, the reception in the area, and then there's the reveal of the restaurant. And I think the same with maybe games. We learned that maybe for too much of Hollow Remnant, we were a little more secretive in the beginning of the project. So I think being open and transparent, people are more interested sometimes in the making of things rather than the end result. So I think sharing your process of making games would be more interesting to people than just showing the 1 minute fancy trailer cut. Although that's nice too. Share that too, please. But I think Matthew, for example, it would be, I think, great testimony from a developer to share if you had more sketching done specifically for games and you got to share your 2 cents about what that was like. That yeah, ever since you started doing that, maybe you started combining stuff about your likes and interests, your skill sets. You're able to start getting a unique flow.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think that's actually not a bad idea to be open and transparent because, in all honesty, when it comes to being open and transparent, those two things are, I think, some very important factors and key things that people should learn to do in terms of different things, especially when it comes to being a leader. Sometimes, like when you're leading a project or if you're working on something, or like for example in my case, having this channel, being open and transparent with your audience and whoever might be interested in what you're working on is probably one of the best things you could do because like it grants that feeling of like these people are a part of it. They get to see you on the come up during the warm up, and then see you when it's game time where they can play test it, or when it actually comes out and they see the trailer and they're like, we've been here since day one. We've got to see the ups and downs. It was really interesting, and they finally get to play the final thing and get to experience it as a whole. And I don't think it just doesn't just apply to games. I think it also applies to, again, making videos sometimes in my case, or like making artwork, because I already decided one thing that I wanted to do to like kind of be more open and transparent and just like kind of have people kind of get an idea of what I'm like when I'm not recording, because like it's obvious that like when it comes to recording certain videos, especially on YouTube, that what you see is not exactly the same thing you'll see off camera. So like the idea of streaming sometimes like it kind of brings that, I don't know, sentimentality and that like friendship kind of vibe into an audience, and it just kind of makes it feel good, like you feel like you're getting to know the audience and the audience is getting to know you. So I kind of was like, I might just start streaming or whenever I can, whenever I'm playing a game, whenever I'm drawing. And on top of that, I'm getting a keyboard very soon, like the piano, because I've always been interested in piano. So like I'm able to do stuff like that, have people see me learn or see me just do this thing that I've always been wanting to work on for a while, but never got around to because I thought people would not like it. So I think like being open and transparent with your audience is probably one of the best things you could do for like your brand and for also like the future of your game. Like just having that, just being able to just say, yeah, here's how it's going. Personally, I think this is how X, Y, and Z goes. What you guys think, let me know. I really appreciate the ideas. And then on top of that, when they're able to have some say into how it could be, it also makes it, again, it goes back to the idea of like that feeling of contribution. So I think being open and transparent is like very important for like create like entertainment, media, creative type stuff. Because you see what happens when people are not open and creative. People kind of just find out about certain things that they do when they're not, and some of that stuff may be suspicious. And then you have this entire culture in Twitter nowadays that just kind of just bites you in the butt when you're just not open and like you're not honest and transparent sometimes. I'm not saying that like people should just explain everything that's happening and talk about everything that's happening in their life. I'm not saying that, but like just having that little bit of transparentness and open and that ability to just be open with your audience sometimes just kind of lets them know that who you really are, and no matter what other people say about you, granted that like it may be a mistake from back then, no matter what people say, just because that you're open with your audience, and when in times such as streaming or like in terms of just being there and being active with them, they know who you are they know who you are on and off camera. So like whenever things may come, whenever there's a storm or someone tries to throw shade Like they'll be there to be like, that may have happened or that may not have happened. I don't understand why you would say stuff like that. Why would you bring that up? But at the end of the day, he's different. He's atoned for it, and so let him move on. Let him walk the path. Let him pay for his punish. Let him atone for his sins, and let him just grow on his own instead of just bashing him constantly. I'm not saying again. Also, another thing is I'm not saying that like the only time this applies, the idea of like making sure letting the person just grow on their own after like atoning for mistake they made and letting them and having them suffer the consequences on their own after they apologize. Because even though you apologize, you still there still has to be a punishment. That only applies to me. That only works if like the person is willing to change. If the person is willing to change, and if they have changed from the mistake they made that they may or may not have made, then good. The fact that the audience was able to see that and the person was able to accept that, I like that. People who are willing to accept that they made a mistake and grow from it and move on. People who are able to do that, cool. But if the person's consistently being like that over and over and over, and then trying to get a pity party on, that's when I'm like, that's not it. That's not it. So again, at the end of the day, just being open and transparent just helps overall, not only just in the game, but in terms of audience and letting people know who you are, letting people know kind of like your identity and the vibe you give off. Because if you don't, it's kind of like an open closed software. Like not a lot of people know the full ins and outs, and that kind of makes it kind of shady sometimes.
I understand. I also think it makes us better creators when we share when we share more often. Maybe not
Yeah,
only do people that maybe see it, they get to learn, but when they interact back with the creator, they get to learn too. So the creator is not just giving out something for free. They are opening the door to learn, who know, possibly anything. Because
that's
you could,
true.
just as we get inspired, who makes all the things that we find inspiration from? Other people. So other people, are some of our biggest sources of inspiration. And I think not even I think just talking to friends and family could help inspire generate a whole bunch of ideas for games.
I think yeah, that's actually true. It's kind of like what this one artist said. If you made the art and if you did this thing, you should be able to give back and give other people the opportunity to learn from you instead of just gatekeeping and keeping it to yourself. Just the idea of being open and having people have the same opportunity that you did to grow, so everyone wins. I think that just helps out everyone in the end.
To mention something you said earlier about the having thoughts versus writing them, the dimensions of an idea,
Yeah.
and that I think a lot of people, especially with game development, sometimes, and I speak from experience, that maybe sometimes we're a little too, I don't want to say shy, but we're a little too maybe cautious with our ideas, more cautious than we should be. An idea, even when it's just spoken about, is it's still very light. There's still a lot of work to be done, and I think that's a lot of maybe hubris on a person to think that their idea is so great that it's just going to be stolen by someone else, right? Now someone else has to make the effort for your idea, right? Do you see how? But I think maybe it's a little bit narcissism, perhaps.
It could
But
be.
I think it's nothing to worry about. I don't think there's anything really such as idea stealing or anything like that. I once heard this quote from Nolan Bush. He was founder of Chuck E. Cheese, Atari, and he would always be looking. He used to, I think he said in an interview, when there was constant clones overseas of some of Atari's games, and he said he couldn't be bothered by worrying about the copiers, because he had to be working on the new thing that they couldn't copy yet. And that's how I feel like it is with idea stealing. If you have the time to worry about someone stealing your idea, that could just be time you could spend coming up with a new idea, right? That they're
Or
not
like
stealing because it's new.
or add on to that same idea and make it and still and keep adding on to it so that way like it'll be too much for them to keep up on. Because at the end of the day, since you're the one who started it, you're the one who can twist it and shape it into whatever you want. It's like Play-Doh or Legos. Reality can be whatever you want with your idea.
And it could honestly be it could help the idea too. Maybe you have a really ambitious idea, and it's not until you shared it with someone, maybe hopefully maybe a developer, they 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 let you know, and then maybe you could reconsider. And I think conversation's powerful, and I think sharing the idea, I think not being afraid of any consequence of sharing yourself, right, with the person.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't want to just assume that someone might harm us or in any kind of way. We kind of hope for the best for each other. Maybe not everyone's going to be your friend, but you could at least count on them to take care of themselves and you to take care of yourself.
That's true. That's true. Well,
Did you have any more questions about on a personal level of you developing your game? Have you been considering maybe your other gifts and talents in other areas and how you could maybe apply them to game development?
quick heads up before the video continues. Right here, it got to a point where the audio got very choppy because my computer was just going off the deep end because its battery was low. So I'm just gonna cut this part out here, just giving you guys a heads up, and we'll be right back. Can you hear me now?
Oh, Matthew? Hello?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I was trying to speak, but I guess you couldn't hear me. But with the idea of the martial arts part of things, honestly, when it came down to that, it was just at first it started off as just me like, oh, I want to be like Goku or One Punch Man, and then eventually it turned into this like really this one thing where I was like, this is actually something really interesting that I wanted to just do. Not I can't At first I was just doing it just to show off. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of wanted to show off with it at first, but then it just grew into this thing where I was just like, I was more interested in like how the techniques work, and I just at this point I just do it for fun. Like my brother for example, he mainly wanted to get into it because he wanted to find a way to lose weight, and because he wanted to make sure he could defend himself when he gets back to school. In my case, I just kind of wanted to do it for fun, and to make sure that and one small thing was just to make sure that like if I have to defend myself, or in the near future, if quarantine dies down, hopefully if I have to defend one of my close friends or my family or my significant other, I could step up to the plate and do that because of my practice and because of how consistent I am and how committed I am to doing something like that. But at the same time, in terms of like applying it to game development, I know it's possible, and a good example of that what is the new show that came out, Gotta High School, because what they do with their fighting styles, how the choreography works, they actually have pros in the certain martial arts that are being shown in the show, like do choreography, and then from there they'll do their key animations from those clips recorded or from like the videos of them fighting in the studio. So like I think I could apply it to like I'm thinking of applying it to like a more 3D type of game, but in all honesty, I could apply some of the aspects to the game that I'm working on now, depending on like whatever item I want to use, or if I want to use unarmed, I might just apply it to it. I just have to make sure that like it can work within the top-down 2D perspective that I really want the game to be in. But martial arts is something that I've gotten into a lot recently, or not even recently, that I've been into since like 8th grade, and I'm grateful for it because it kind of grounded me as a person to be more disciplined, and it kind of instilled in me the idea of, like, as much as people want to be the best, for me it's like you can be the best, but at the same time there's something about like, instead of just beating down whatever competition you come into, you welcome the challenge, you use that as motivation to keep improving, because that's what happens. Because when at some point when you reach the top and you feel like you've become the best of the best, then and you have no goal, that's when like things happen and you just start falling from grace. I think the idea of you can be better today, or better than you were today than you are tomorrow, or better than you are tomorrow than you are today. I think that's one thing that kind of just was instilled in me, or the idea of there may be someone out there that may be on the come up that may be better than me. So that kind of just keeps me motivated. Not to per se like say like, oh, I'm gonna stomp them out of existence, but to say, for example, like I could learn a few things from them. I could use this as a way to motivate myself to do better, and use it as a way to like maybe even inspire myself to find a couple of things that I've never thought I wanted to try out. So like those two mentalities that I kind of developed from just practicing martial arts and lifting weights and exercising, I think I'm grateful for those ideals in particular because it kind of just keeps me motivated to do certain things. So I'm grateful for martial arts. I got into music recently. I slightly got into music because my uncle and one of my cousins produces music. So I've always been interested in how pianos worked and drums. So I've always considered like, if I got really good with it, or if I could get, or yeah, if I got really good with it, I can maybe one day be able to produce some of the tracks for my own game per se. Or like if I wanted to get some extra help, one of my friends is a musician who just started coming out with his new albums recently. So I could get some help from him and have him like kind of coach me on what to do and make sure I can get a certain tone for whatever track that I want to do. So there's a lot of things that like I wouldn't say talents, but certain things that some of certain hobbies or like activities that I kind of picked up on that kind of just made me just get super. Yeah, I think that could apply to what I want to do now, and just help me overall just grow as a person. And I'm grateful for them all. And I'm trying to figure out some of them. I'm just trying to figure out what I can do and add them to a game. So those are just some of the few things that I would do. But so
Thanks for sharing that. I think something that could help you and maybe other people with not only game development, but anything that they'd like to at least try to pursue. If you could do something every day for the benefit of what you have in mind. I'm not necessarily saying set up a 1 hour development session every day. You might not have the time for that. What I'm more saying is have something more fluid. You don't have to do an hour of development dedicated every day, but you could take some kind of action to benefit at least the next day. Maybe you don't sketch all the amounts for a character or something for the game, but maybe you at least you find your references, you do something, and it's like you're never missing a step essentially. And if you think about the project itself has a certain amount of time it's going to take to complete, you'll know when it's done, and however long that takes, it could be shortened day by day until it's completed. It's almost as if you guarantee its completion if you made a daily habit of doing a small tweak or nudge for it, and then compound 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You have 365 days to throw at whatever projects. Nothing so large to make you deterred, but you could at least, maybe you don't have to sketch the entire, maybe you sketch just one frame for a character's animation a day if you were that packed on schedule. You feel me though?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it's not that it's doing something right. Something's better than nothing. And some might, maybe the half empty water glasses type of people might be like, well, what if I'm only going to do one sketch? Why not just wait till I can do more sketch? Well, that's the thing. It's the consistency, right? It's not about always doing the time. I exercise more consistently than maybe that 1 or 2 times you go to the gym. I like to maintain a more consistent everyday. And maybe this isn't for everyone. I just think that you could try this, and maybe you might have better results helping bring your ideas and passions to life.
So just taking it like one step at a time and just being consistent with it instead of just trying to make it like, oh, okay, I'll just dedicate an hour, when in reality during that hour you might just lose interest or like you'll feel gassed out. You just take your time and just do little tweaks, and eventually by the end of it you'll have yourself a game that you've worked on consistently, and it's actually pretty good. And from there you could just keep refining it, kind of like hammering away at a blade, but in terms of a game. And you don't have to put yourself under so much stress, because as much as people may say like senior year of high school is the easiest year, because all you really have to do from there is just make sure that your grades are set, and you just make sure you get your college stuff set up and you're good. The thing with that for me in particular is I think it mostly is due to the classes that I've chose for this year, because I decided that I wanted to take an AP class this year. So I think that's one thing that kind of was just, for me, it was just like I had to get used to it, because it's the first ever AP class I've ever taken, what makes things a little more difficult in my case is the fact that it's AP Physics, and AP Physics. At first, I thought I would be. At first, I was like, it may not be as hard as I think. Granted, sometimes it may not be. It's not as hard, but there are just times like right now with what we're learning where I'm just kind of swamped. So like the idea of just taking like not even a whole hour, maybe like 10, 15 minutes, just tweaking certain things to the game, and then just focusing on whatever, just managing your time that way. I think that kind of work that'll work for me in particular, because like it would help give me time to not only just focus on game development, but also give me time to work on videos, make sure my grades are good, so that way like I don't have to get yelled at, and at the same time make sure that I'm ready for college. Because the one thing that I know that I want to do at college is not just learn the things when I could learn the things now. Like I would use college to bolster the principles of what I'm learning on my own, or like use it as a chance to like kind of meet certain people and take the opportunity to learn, and like take the opportunity to try new things in that field. But I mostly want to use it as a way to like build up projects and see how far they go, while being able to just like get a higher education and look credible to other developers or anywhere else that I want to work. So that's one of the key reasons why I decided that I wanted to go to college instead of just jumping straight into freelance. And that tip you gave me, just making sure I'm consistent with it, my pretty much, if I add it, I know that it will probably help a lot more, especially when I go into college, because I know from what my dad has told me from his experience, college can be overwhelming sometimes, but you just have to learn to manage your time. So being able to just put in like 15 minutes of just tweaking slight things and just making sure that like you get some stuff down, that will help a lot in what I want to do, especially with like anything creative, be it game development like we're talking now, or even the channel that I'm trying to build up. So yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Thank you.
No problem. I hope so. A lot of times I notice I do this myself. We overcomplicate things, and if we just take a step back, sometimes everything just kind of clears up. We overthink things, I think.
That's very, in my case, that's extreme. Like, not just my case. I can say this for both me and my best friend Gunnar. We overthink things a lot. One thing that I started to do, instead of just letting my thoughts just crowd up and just start going straight into overthinking in whatever I do, be it like because of quarantine, I have doubts in some of my friends, or like I feel like they're doing X, Y, and Z, or like just with school, I'll just overthink. Sometimes I'll just pause, go for a walk, and listen to music, or just type my feelings down in like a journal that I started. So like, being an overthinker, it's like just that the idea of overthinking, it just does more harm than good. It sounds obvious now, but when you really think about it, the answer may be like just stop overthinking, like calm down and slow down. When in reality, it's harder than it seems, because you just keep coming up with these other what if situations. So that's why like it's important to just take a second and take a step back and just do something else and just recollect yourself. So the idea of just overthinking, especially with projects, like with game design, like you'd be like, oh, I feel like people are not gonna like this, or like this doesn't seem to work right. What am I gonna do? What if this will actually benefit? Like those thoughts that come in when you're overthinking, like it's very important to just take some time and just put some time and just like zen out sometimes. Just zen yourself out, listen to music, lay down, drink some water or drink some tea. Just take a moment to just recollect yourself and get like step away from work real quick, because I think that's more important sometimes. Just, well, a lot of the times, like putting your well-being first in front of like whatever project or whatever game you're doing. So that means that like when you're feeling like whenever someone feels like they're overthinking something, or if they're stressed with a certain project or assignment, then they should just like take some time, take a step back, breathe, and find a way to like de-stress themselves real quick, come back, recollect their thoughts, and like maybe, and then probably what will happen most likely is just you have a more straighter line of, okay, here's what I actually want to do. Or in the case of your friends, like say if you think that they're doing this or they're talking bad, and you think of these what ifs, you'd be like, how could they do that? How could they do this? I trust that they won't do that. you started realizing that you were just kind of being stupid, but it just happens because overthinking. You just tend to people just tend to overthink things sometimes. I brought my best friend Gunner up because like it kind of applies to like social life in school. Cause for example, talking to a girl, that is a great example. In my case, in particular, I kind of want to tell a story for that. Cause I remember at some point where there is this girl. She was on the cheerleading team, and she was really cute. And on top of that, the only reason why I still remembered her is because in 8th grade she was in the same art class I was in, and during that time I was like, I didn't really pay much attention to her, but I knew for sure that she was really good at art, and on top of that, she seemed really cool. She seemed really nice, and she seemed to be really focused. So I was like, you know what? I should try to talk to this girl. But you know what? But like, it took me 2 days to even consider like approaching her, and it was because like I felt like I was either gonna get embarrassed in front of people, or because I was like, oh, what I'm wearing right now is not good enough. So I just started overthinking. So at some point, around that time, there's this YouTuber that I watch. She plays games, but like at the same time, like some of the advice he's given in one video in particular, like it was just a video called "Just Start." Like, you may be overthinking, you may be scared, you may feel like once you fall off you can't get back up. Like, he just says no matter what happens, all you gotta really do in order to rise up from that occasion and just get better is just start doing what you want to do. You may be scared overthinking things and letting that fear control you is just going to keep you in that spot. So even when you may feel that way, it's better to just walk forward and just let everything flow on its own, instead of just trying to strategize something. Sometimes you just gotta let things flow. So in that case, fast forward after those 2 days, like, I just let things flow. I just said hi, and I talked to her. Sadly, I couldn't get her number, but at the same time, I learned a valuable lesson where just, I let things flow, and I found out about myself, what happens when I let things flow. Granted, I was still nervous, like really nervous. Like, I was kind of shaking, my voice was shaky, but that happens sometimes, It happens to the best of us. Like, I think with just social life and all this kind of stuff, overthinking just happens to a lot of people. And what I think that a lot of people should do is, if you ever feel like that, just take a step back and put some time into yourself and just zen out and just listen to music, play your favorite game, draw, sketch, do whatever helps you calm down, and just recollect your thoughts, and then go back at it and just start. That's the key factor, just making sure you just start and just and then whenever you feel like you're getting kind of jumbled or overthink, you pause for a minute and take an intermission, then keep going from there.
I agree. Something you mentioned, flow.
Yeah.
I think something about that. I think I like the way you worded that. If you could see, the better you're able to view everything that happens to your benefit, the less anything could disrupt you. Although you did mention, passing of a loved one. That is a lot harder, and that's up to the person. But if we didn't dwell on that so much, and you thought about maybe other things that could happen, these things you can maybe more easily flip them to see as your benefit. Say you're working on a sketch, for example, you accidentally spill your beverage, water, coffee maybe, and you might suddenly be frustrated. Mm-hmm. And that frustration will do nothing for the benefit of your project, really. But if you can just, again, I guess, take a step back and deal with it, that what you might have could be a gift. In fact, it is a gift. It's an experience. This wouldn't have happened unless you deserved this, right? Your drink was a little too close to your working area, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it allows you to be more self-aware as well. But also, you start to discover that you can see everything that happens to you as a benefit. Maybe the coffee dries, and you suddenly like the interesting pattern it made from a random spill, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the things that maybe not the best things are going to happen to everyone all the time, But when things that arguably aren't the best thing, you could still get something valuable from the experience.
That's very true.
Same with maybe if we were doing this interview, if maybe if either on either end of us of this interview, if someone's family member walked in, that one of us might feel like, oh,
Hmm.
I wish that didn't happen. But in a way, it's a gift in and of itself, right? Like maybe not exactly obvious to what we're doing, but it's good in like a life sense, right? Like, I'm glad this so and so is all right. They were checking up on me. I'm good too. And there's that interaction at the very least, right? So you can't put a positive. You mentioned a positive spin, and I think you could see everything to your benefit. And if you could
Yes.
maybe apply that to what you're working on, there's not really anything that's to stop you. Like maybe you're about to go work on some game development, a parent or someone needs help with something, a chore perhaps. What it could be anything, honestly. You might be like, oh, I'd rather be work, or maybe you just finished doing that and now you don't have really much time to work on your game for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Again, it could be best if you did something, sharpen your pencils for sketching tomorrow. You see what I mean? Like you can make a small action subtle, but it could help you make waves tomorrow.
Yeah. I think one thing
But
that people should all keep in mind sometimes is no matter how bad things may seem, granted there are things that are just genuinely bad, depending on when you take a step back and think, anything can be a blessing. It just depends on the angle that you take from it. Anything is a blessing depending on the angles. That's one thing that I also picked up on the in all honesty, like with this entire year 2020, like even though things have been chaotic, especially over here in America, which I don't really want to go into because this video would be over 2 hours long. But granted, a lot of things have been happening, with the COVID and the protests and stuff. As much as there have been terrible things that's happening, a lot of loved ones are being lost. For me in particular, 2020 was more of a year of like just me finding a lot more about myself and finding more a lot about more a lot about people and how they are in times like this. Like for example, because I spent most of this year listening to music and reading and playing games or drawing after once school ended. Even now, like during school, I spend most of my time doing that kind of stuff. Like one thing that I started picking up on certain things that I found out and things and ideals that I kind of want to live by. Like I said, like for example, the one I said before, anything can be a blessing depending on the angle that you take. Anything, like there's always some form of silver lining. Granted, it may not be as big of a silver lining as it could be from something else. It's still something that you can cling on to and say, yeah, let's just let yeah this look at the bright side, or at least this isn't X, Y, and Z, or thank God for this. Like it kind of it's something that I started just thinking to myself whenever something happens, or like if like I trip and fall and whatever experience that I'm doing, that just this may have happened now, but look at the bright side of this, or look at the angle of this, look from this perspective. This may have done this positive thing or whatever. So overall, I think for me 2020, I'm kind of grateful for this year because it kind of gave me time to just find out who I am as a person and help me find out who people are, get to know really cool and really interesting people that I vibed with and help them out. You know, I'm grateful for that. Granted, I still think 2020 was a pretty crappy year, but just for my, I guess you could say, character development, it kind of just did more good than bad.
me too. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Um, actually, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Because we've gone into like an hour and 23 of recording, and this was a very interesting interview, or I guess you could say it was a conversation to have. More like not just about game development, but just the idea of maintaining optimism and taking creativity from anything else. And we both got to learn a lot about each other, and so hopefully, I hope anyone else who watches this gets to learn that same kind of vibe. You know, I hope they learned a few things from like this interview, and I hope like they get to push on, myself included. Myself included, I learned a lot. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for
May I
deciding
add
to
something?
reschedule. Sure.
No problem. It's my pleasure. The last thing I wanted to end on was that dreams come true every day. Weeks ago, months actually, I had a dream that I would be interviewed. I didn't know what context. I had never been interviewed before. Usually I give the interview, such as with Matthew. And now that dream has come true, full circle, with thanks in part to Matthew extending an invitation to interview me, thus helping me make my dream come true. So thank you, Matthew, for having me.
No problem, no problem. I really appreciated you coming on because note to the audience, this was recorded last Friday and the audio didn't record on his end at all. So the fact that he was able to reschedule for this weekend and just go and so we can do it over so that way you guys can see it, I really appreciate that. So we're gonna end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am back from my 2-month hiatus. I hope to be recording a lot more. I have one video in particular that I have in mind to come out with. It has to do with Mirio and like what we were talking about earlier, cynicism. So I hope you guys stick around for that. Thanks again, Mr. Moreno, for joining me today on this interview. Make sure you guys check out his game Hollow Revenant, which is out now on Steam for VR. It's a really cool game from like how you saw me react, especially with Byakuya Kuchiki's Death Blossom swords that are being added to his game, which I found really cool. So if you guys want to check that out on his game, please check it out. Because if I had a VR set, I would get it too. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment down below what you think and what you want to see more. If you want to see more Mr. Moreno, maybe, who knows, we could play like, I don't know, Among Us on stream or something. So if you guys want to see more of him, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe for more content. Turn on the notification for every Wednesday. I'm gonna start trying to stream I'm gonna try to stream on Fridays and weekends on different things. So, you know, hold me up to that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next Wednesday. Later.
受話器にこう女の笑い